Hi everybody, hope all is well. So recently I had the development team of the Chinese Division 2 get in touch with me and I was completely shocked by that. So if you want to find out what happened and listen to my little story, stick around. It all started around 3 weeks ago. I was just looking at my emails while I was at work and I seen this one pop up from the Division 2 China team and I was like, okay, what's this? So I had a look at the email. Not the best translated email I've ever come across, but it pretty much said, we're the Division 2 China dev team. We're really inspired seeing your videos on YouTube. The Chinese community love your videos. I'm not making this bullshit up, by the way. This is exactly what the email says. And they were wondering if you'd like to do an interview with us. The questions will mostly focus on the game itself and your connection with your team. And if it's okay, we will reveal the content in our social media channels. And I was like, okay, this sounds completely dodgy because the email itself wasn't exactly the most official thing I've came across. However, it was from a Ubisoft.com email address and I did all the usual spoofing checks and checked all the headers and stuff and it seemed to check out. So I answered them and I didn't really expect a reply, if I'm brutally honest with you. I thought I was very skeptical. I did think it was a bit of a scam, possibly. But then they replied. Now in the reply they pretty much wanted to really ask me a lot of questions. It was very much a question and answers sort of based. I wouldn't say it was an interview, more just giving me an opportunity to introduce myself and also give them some feedback on my gaming experience playing the Division 2 in China. And that's pretty much what the article I'm going to show you covers. So I filled it all in, spent a little bit of time on it, added a few more questions later, sent it all off. Didn't really think anything about it because I was still quite skeptical, if I'm brutally honest with you, about what was going to happen. And then earlier on this week, I thought I'll have a look on the official Division 2 China website. And I could see this article. I clicked on it because it was actually all in Chinese. I was looking at it on my phone, so I didn't really know what it was. And then I could see my name there, and I was like, holy shit. It looks like it was absolutely legit. So we'll go over the article. You can have a look at it. Tell me what you think. I'll also go over some of the questions that I did ask and didn't get answered. And I'll maybe elaborate on a few things. So if that interests you, that's what I'm going to be talking about for probably the next 5 minutes. Okay, let's make a start. I'll also leave a link to this article in the description below so you can just have a look at it yourself instead of listening to me whitter on about it. But the first question they asked me was just basically about me introducing myself, so yeah, that's me, Virtuals. I live in the northeast of England, near Durham. I wrote Durham because I'm actually a Teessider, but I think a lot of the area around me is classed as County Durham. And they asked me a little bit around what my favourite games were, etc. The usual stuff, sort of like breaking the ice. Then next up, they were really wanting to ask me around about when did I start playing this game, what attracted me to it. And, like you, I'm probably very much the same. I'm big in the Division series. I played it from beta in Division 1, never really stopped playing it. 4,000 hours in the first game, over 8,000 in the second game, and I put over 900 hours now into the Chinese game as well, so it sort of gives me a good sort of understanding of how this game is and how this game works, whereas other people who haven't played it just speculate. I actually know and actually talk about it and talk about the differences, which makes me a little bit more unique than some of the other content creators you follow who just guess at stuff really. So that was the question there. So next up, they were interested in how I connect to the game, and if I use things like VPNs and stuff. And I don't use any VPNs at all. I connect through the WeGame platform, which is very much like, it's almost like Ubisoft Connect, or Steam probably, or something along those lines. It's just generally the launcher. However, because I am from England and I'm connecting to Chinese servers, you find that you do get a lot of lag, and you can get a lot of deltas and like hanging and stuff. So I use what the classes they call it an accelerator program, but really it's, if I'm honest with you, it's more like just a Chinese VPN. I pay something like, I think it's $8 a month it costs me to use that, and it connects to, like, I don't know how it connects. I think it connects to some sort of Chinese server or something. But it, to be fair, it does a really good job at completely stabilising my connection. Very rarely ever get a delta, very rarely ever get a crash. It does happen from time to time, but it's like I get less crashes and less deltas in this game than I do in our game, put it that way. So it works pretty well. But one of the big things that we're also asking me about is like registering for an account, and that is the biggest obstacle, full stop. Just because overseas players are just you've virtually got no chance of being able to get an account in this game. You've got to register through QQ. They're very picky on who they choose, certainly foreigner wise, and it really is just pot luck. Some of the other things they're asking me about is making some in-game purchases. I have done some in-game purchases. I actually found it very easily, if I'm honest with you. But the big challenge in the game, like, is the language barrier, and the language barrier is generally caused by them because they block any language that isn't Chinese. Yes, you can turn the in-game like narration as such to English, but other than that, everything else is Chinese, and it does make it a little bit of a pain. But because I've played the Division 2 for such a long time, muscle memory kicks in, and you know, you're generally pretty much okay. Next up is just really what I've already covered on, like, network delays and crashes. Say once I've used the accelerator, it was perfectly fine, no real issues whatsoever there. After that, they were talking about legendary weapons and do I have them, and you know, basically what do I think about them? Do I think they're good? Do I think they're bad, really? And also, you know, any of the appearance stuff, and what do I think of the price? And to be fair, the legendary weapons, they are very well designed. They're absolutely, like, fantastic. I have them all. However, with them, you know, unless you buy the add-ons, the mods for them, they're nowhere near as good. But when you do buy the mods, you're super OP. And one of the things I was trying to get across to them was that because they are so strong, once you have a legendary weapon, you generally don't go back to a regular weapon. So exotics and high-end weapons really have no bearing and no meaning in the Chinese game. It's legendary weapons or nothing, really, and that's not good for the balance. And the one thing Massive do very well, as much as you might not believe it, they actually balance the game very well. Whereas in China, it's almost like it's just buff. You know what I mean? The way of getting out of it is just to keep buffing. And unfortunately, you can't just keep doing that, because, you know, new players coming into the game, and if they don't have a legendary weapon, and they don't spend money on accessories, they're left behind. And I was really trying to say to them, if they're not gonna nerf anything, which I just don't think they are. I just don't think it's in their nature. I think what I would do, I would potentially pick a couple of the exotics every season, of the exotic talents, and absolutely buff the backside out of them to bring them up to a legendary level, and that then gives people a chance to experience other weapons as opposed to just legendaries, and it sort of brings those other people in who haven't spent money on legendary weapons or don't have the legendary weapons. It gives them an opportunity to compete. The next question was very much around content and gameplay, which is like really the stuff which is exclusive to the Chinese server, and really what I like best. And to be fair, Dark Hours, I thought the way they changed Dark Hours was absolutely fantastic. Just brilliant. Cannot believe that they haven't brought that over, that Massive haven't brought that version over into our game. It was so much better, the changes they made to it, and it just completely refreshes. So my opinion, Massive need to bring that over, and yeah, the Chinese team did a really good job of that. I covered off things like the Abyss, where it's okay to start off with, but you do get bored very, very quickly. The same 6 rooms over and over and over again with increasing difficulty, it just gets a bit, you get sick after a while, you really, really do. The Red Dragon block that they brought out was okay for a short-term bit of play, which is what it was designed for. I have no problem with that whatsoever. However, the Red Dragon Hotel mode that they brought out, it's just not very friendly at all. It's really, really difficult. NPCs are like super, super aggressive, probably the most aggressive they are in the Chinese version. And really, unless you're a guy who's paid all the money to buy all the gear, you've got no chance in that mode whatsoever. So it really does, well, it's just not friendly for newer players. It's as simple as that. And then covered off things like the Dark Zone, the block Dark Zone. I think, again, fantastic what they did with that. However, they have like 90-minute sessions in there, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but you get bored. It's like you run the same landmarks over and over again. I was really saying that you need to like maybe lower the sessions or session time, maybe to 60-minute times. And it's sort of like, I think that would fit a little bit better, but again, whether they're interested in changing things like that, down to going by what a British person says, I very much doubt. Then I also talked about the Guardian, the pet, just probably the best thing about the Chinese game, full stop. It's just absolutely fantastic. Whether that would actually translate well into the international game, I don't know, or whether it's something they might look at for Division 3, which would probably more than likely, in my opinion. But we'll see. The future will only tell on that one. But yeah, I think that was like completely fantastic. I also covered off things like the module system that they do in China. Again, another fantastic system. I'd like to see that over in our game. Obviously altered so it actually fits our game, which is fantastic. Told them I didn't really like the fact that all the weapons were locked and all of the equipment and stats were locked, and you had to optimize them all. You know, I was really trying to get across this as a looter shooter. It's you grind for decent rolls and better rolls and things like that. You can't just have it drop once and that's all you need. You then just unlock everything and optimize it. It doesn't make for a great compelling gameplay in my opinion. And as I said, I think the international server wins on that front. And also then I also talked about the Summit, which for those of you who don't know, the Summit in China, they're very different to ours, a lot of the different use case. Their use case is that you use it for your watch points, your seasonal watch points every year. Every season, which is good. It gives the Summit a real use case. However, it's a bit of a pain every season having to climb the Summit. So yeah, and then we move on to the next one. Next up, they were asking me about me communicating or playing with Chinese players and what sort of feedback do I got from them. And the reality is I've met a lot of really, really fantastic Chinese people. Obviously the language barriers potentially a bit of a problem, but some of the guys I've met, they're not too bad with their English. They're pretty good, and they're really, really helpful. Big thank you to them guys. I still play with them quite a lot. They keep in touch all the time. They're in my Discord. They contact me through the QQ or through WeChat, etc, etc. So yeah, pretty much been fantastic with me, the Chinese guys. Over the moon with that. The last question in the article was basically about me asking the developers or any suggestions with the game. And to be fair, I did actually think that they'd done a good job with optimising and changing the design of the game to fit the Chinese market. They definitely did a really good job of that. Then really after that, they didn't really answer the rest of the things or suggestions that I popped in. So what I'll do, I'll cover them off the things that I asked them and I didn't get an answer with. So here we go with them. I asked them about unblocking the localization, so it's better for foreign players. And it's not in this article, but they did actually say that it's not in the plan. It's something that they're not really looking at, but they'll bring the topic up to the dev team, which is probably bullshit, to be fair. They've probably got no intention to do anything like that. Next, I actually asked them how closely the Chinese dev team work with Massive, because those of you who don't know, the Chinese dev team is actually Ubisoft Shanghai. And obviously Shanghai worked on the Division game before the Chinese version came out as well. I also asked them about any collaborations and crossovers, and if there's any like limitations or what each team can use from other versions of the game, and it was pretty much said that they do have connections with Massive. However, most of the Chinese exclusive content actually comes from the Chinese team. Again, they said they'll bring some of these suggestions up with the dev team, and they also asked them about things like future plans regarding the DLC and legendary, is there any legendary gear coming, etc. And they pretty much said that they're still in discussion about that, and there's nothing that they can disclose now. So we'll wait and see what the Chinese market get as far as DLC goes, and anything else that's added to the international game. One of the things that they didn't answer that I did ask the question on is that how or where the direction of the Chinese game is going from a narrative perspective, purely because they diverted from that in this current season that they currently have, and the way they diverted it means it completely changes everything, like completely everything. So I've got this feeling that the Chinese team are just not going to follow the narrative that we have been following in our game, and I actually got this feeling they're not even going to follow a narrative whatsoever. They're just going to do their own thing with game modes and things, and additions to the game, and just basically, well, fuck the story off, if I'm honest with you. And I think that's probably why they didn't really give me a question on that, because I also asked them about things like Countdown and Descent coming from the international game, and I just got completely blanked with that. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're just going to do their own thing, but we'll wait and see. Time will tell. And lastly, one of the other questions that they asked me, but they never give me an answer or even put it in this article, was around the way the Chinese game works. So obviously that adopts like a free-to-play model, whereas the international game is obviously a premium-based model. And they asked me what I thought was better, and basically I told them the international model is better because it is simple as. So I'll put the question and answer on the screen there so you can see what I actually wrote. But yeah, so that was it. That was my little question and answers session with the Chinese dev team. Really happy that they put it on the main page on the website, and they put it into WeChat and things like that, which is fantastic. Pretty much over the moon with it. Really happy that they reached out for me. But I think I'll cut the video here. I think I've been whittling on for way too long. Probably one of my longest videos of me talking, and I don't really like to talk too much, if I'm honest with you. I don't like to talk bullshit. Why not just get to the point straight away? So that's it from me, and bye bye now.